Good morning and welcome back to Rooted. We plan to share with you each Tuesday and Friday over the coming weeks and trust you will be able to take the time to tune in. How are you doing? Really? How are you in your spirit? Are you feeling positive and encouraged? Or are you feeling down and discouraged? Maybe like me, this time of lockdown has in some ways been a bit of a roller coaster ride of emotion, with good days interspersed with maybe not so good days, the ups and the downs. Maybe like me, the recent excitement of restrictions being eased, enabling us to venture out only to see queues and social distancing that makes everything that more challenging and time consuming. Or maybe over this past week you've really struggled as you've watched the world that has been dealing with the virus suddenly and sharply react to what it sees as ongoing injustices. In the midst of this roller coaster ride, I've been really challenged about how I approach my conversations with God. I had the opportunity to read some great books on prayer which have wonderful insights, yet time and time again I find myself being drawn back to God's Word and seeking to use it as a guide and stimulus for my prayers. Recently I was reading one of R.T. Kendall's books, Did You Think to Pray? And was struck by a reference to part of the letter Paul wrote to the church in Corinth and all the believers in Greece. This is what he writes: On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us as you help us by your prayers. Then many will give thanks on our behalf for the gracious favour granted us in answer to the prayers of many. We don't have time to read the whole letter, but I encourage you to do that when you're able. Paul had founded the church in Corinth and spent probably about 18 months teaching and helping the church establish itself. And after he moved on, some serious problems arose, and so he sends Timothy to deal with them on his behalf. And then he writes his first letter to the church in Corinth. And despite his attempts to address some issues in the church, the situation does not really improve, and Paul has to visit them to confront those who have been causing trouble in the church. Still, problems continued, and he wrote again and has Titus deliver a strongly worded letter to the church. And after much concern, Paul meets up with Titus and hears, thankfully, that things have improved. And it is at this point he writes the second letter to the Corinthians that we are dipping into this morning. This letter is all about comfort and encouragement. Paul's letter is saturated with encouraging words. Paul is shared about the trouble he experienced in Asia. We don't know the exact nature of it, but we do know it was to the point of being overwhelmed, unable to cope, fearing death, and in the midst of his trouble, he shares how he learns to rely on God instead of himself. He shares how he relies on the God who raises the dead, the all-powerful, all-present, all-knowing one, and so he survives and experiences God's deliverance from his situation and shares that with us in this letter. What is really challenging for me is that Paul says that it is in God he sets his hope, knowing that God will continue to deliver him. But how? How will God deliver Paul? Through the prayers of the believers in Corinth and all over Greece. I wonder what trouble you're facing today. What situation do you feel overwhelmed by? Maybe you're even fearful of death because of your circumstances. Can I encourage you to consider 3 things quickly this morning? Firstly, put your hope in God. Do not lose sight of God in the midst of your trouble. He is the one that we can trust to be with us always. He will either deliver us from our trouble or bring us through our trouble. Secondly, share your trouble with others so that they can pray for you. Maybe you're part of a home group and cell or you have a few close Christian friends, let others pray for you, because prayer really does make a difference. Paul knew it, and he knew he was being helped by the prayers of others. So I encourage you to seek prayerful support from others you know. And then thirdly, as prayer is answered, let those who have prayed for you know, so that everyone can give thanks to God for the answer to your prayers. Prayer makes a difference. In days like these, we need to know that our prayers make a difference. Did you ever think to pray? Thank you.